Hi, readers. Today is Friday, and as you know, on Fridays we write letters to our teacher. And each week I give you something to write about, something that we're going to write inside of our letters. And this week, because all week long we've been looking at plot and what happens in the story, we're going to be writing a summary to our teacher. And we know that when we tell the plot, what's happening in the story, we don't tell every single little itty bitty detail that happens, or else they might as well just go ahead and read the book, right? When you tell about the plot, what happens in a story, you're picking the most important pieces, right? What is it, those itty bitty pieces that we can give to the teacher so that she knows what's happening without telling the entire story, right? And that's what a summary is. It's telling those important little pieces of what happens in the whole plot, okay? Remember when we did our maps where we mapped out what happened throughout the whole story and then we figured out what were the most important parts? Well, that's what we're doing today. And you have some tools. You have different strategies for doing that. You can use the title to help you. Look at the title and say, how can I tell about what happened in the story based off of the title? You'll have to read the book first, but the title is a good help to know what was the main idea. What is the book mostly about, and how can I tell somebody about that using the title? You can also use the structure of uh-oh, phew, because we know that a lot of times in stories there's a big problem, and it usually gets worse. And then all of a sudden, they solve the problem and it gets better. So you can think, what was this big problem? How did it get worse? And then how did they solve it? That's a second way to do a summary. And then the last one we've learned is by saying in the beginning, and then you tell one sentence of what happened in the beginning. Then you say in the middle, and then you tell one sentence that happened in the middle. And then you say in the end, and then you tell one sentence of what happened in the end. No matter what strategy you use, you're going to tell 3 sentences. Use 3 sentences to tell your teacher about the plot, what happened in the story, okay? All right, so I'm going to read you guys a very fun story, and I'm going to show you guys how I use one of these strategies to write a letter to my teacher. And you'll notice on Seesaw, I'm going to show you. On Seesaw, I don't have the structure for you. You have to remember how to write a letter. So remember, we start with Dear, and then your teacher's name. This time I'm going to do Mrs. Davis. Dear Mrs. Davis. And then you can start, I read the book, and then you have to tell the book you read. Today, my book is going to be Big Bad Bubble. So in my thing, I need to make sure I write Big Bad Bubble, period. Okay, so Dear Mrs. Davis, I read the book Big Bad Bubble. Then after I do this, I need to write 3 sentences to tell what happened in my story. So first I need to read you this story. It's a really funny story. And then I'm going to show you how I tell the plot, how I say what happened in the story, okay? So here we go, Big Bad Bubble. You may not know this, but when a bubble pops, it doesn't just disappear. It reappears in La La Land, where the monsters live. For some reason, all the big scary monsters are terrified of bubbles. Yobert, what's the matter? Froofle, why are you running away? Wumpus, stop crying. Tell Wumpus to stop crying. Turns out it's all Mongo's fault. When he was little, a chewing gum bubble attacked his face. Since then, all he can talk about is how dangerous bubbles are. Bubbles are sneaky. You never hear them coming. But there's one bubble. Where there's one bubble, there's many bubbles. They travel in packs. Summer is the worst time for bubbles. That's when they go into a feeding frenzy. Don't listen to Mongo. He has no idea what he's talking about. And in this picture, you can see today's lesson, bubble facts. Sneaky, travel in packs, summer, right? I'll admit, it's a bit surprising when a bubble suddenly appears out of nowhere, but that's part of dealing with living in La La Land. On the plus side, donuts grow on trees, and the rent is cheap. Hey, look, here comes a bubble now. Gilbert, stop running in circles. You have giant fangs. Froofle, climb down from that tree. Look at your claws. You have pointy claws. Wumpus, get out from under those covers. You're much too big for that bed now. Or bed anyhow. Bubbles kill thousands of monsters every year. No, they don't. Oh yeah? Prove it. Look, here's a bubble. It's just a thin layer of soap and water wrapped around a ball of air. It's soft and delicate. It couldn't hurt a fly. You could pop it with a little finger. See? Yobert, use your fangs. Froofle, use your claws. Wumpus, don't be scared. It's just a teeny, tiny... Oh, wait, that's kind of a big one. He's a goner. Quiet, Mongo. Go on, Wumpus. You can do it. Tell Wumpus he can do it. Kaboom! See? Mongo doesn't know what he's talking about. There's no reason to be afraid. Enjoy your bubble gum, Yobert. Have fun popping your bubble wrap, Froofle. Oh boy, that's a big bath full of bubbles, Wumpus. Tell Wumpus to save some water for the fish. Splash. Fine, maybe bubbles aren't so dangerous after all. Butterflies, on the other hand, and then he has a book that says The Truth About Butterflies by Mago Pongo. Pogo. I think I've been pronouncing his name wrong. It's Mago. My bad. But that's the end of the story, guys. So now that I've finished my story, I can think. First, maybe I look at the title. I use my title power. In the title, it says Big Bad Bubble. So we can use that to help us. Okay, it mostly has to do with bubbles and how bubbles are big and bad. Okay, that's really helpful. And I know because I've read the story, so I know what it means by big bad bubble, right? So when I'm writing my 3 sentences, I really have to think. It's all about this big bad bubble. All the other little details, yes, they happened, but they're not important. I'm not going to include anything about the donuts. I'm not going to include anything about random details. I want to make sure I stick with the big bad bubble, okay? Then I can use my strategy of in the beginning, in the middle, and in the end. So I might say in the beginning. And I have to think what happened in the beginning. Well, and it has to do with the big bad bubble, right? So maybe I can say in the beginning, all of the monsters in La La Land are afraid of bubbles because Mago tells them all of these lies about bubbles. Okay, that's what happens in the beginning. All the monsters in La La Land are afraid of bubbles because Mago tells them all these lies about bubbles. In the middle, the monsters start to see that they can use sharp things to pop the bubbles. Right? That's what happens in the middle. In the end, they are no longer afraid of bubbles. There, I told 3 sentences about what happened in my story, the plot of the story. I did that by saying, in the beginning, and then I said what happened. In the beginning, all the monsters in Llama Land are afraid of bubbles because Mongo tells them all these lies about bubbles. That was my first one. In the middle, the monsters start to see that they can use sharp things to pop the bubbles. That was my second one. And then my third one was, in the end, they are no longer afraid of bubbles. That was my third one. And now do not forget that at the end of a letter, you have to say who is writing the letter. So you always write from and then your name, Daniela. So dear Mrs. Davis, you're saying dear whoever you're writing to. I read the book. Tell what book you read. Tell us what happened in the beginning, what happened in the middle, and what happened in the end. Then tell who is writing the story. All right, guys. I'm excited to read your letters. Make sure that you read a book that is fiction, so made up, because you cannot do this with a fiction book, okay, or a nonfiction book. You have to use a fiction book. So read a new story today and tell us about it. We want to hear, what books are you reading? Tell us about it. And so use your strategies that you've learned this week to help you tell us about this story. Tell us what happens, the plot, okay? If you need help, you can rewatch my video, see how did Mrs. Davis come up with what happened in the beginning, in the middle, and in the end. I'm excited, again, to hear the books you're reading and to see about them, learn about them.